All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Smith with just a friendly refresher, particularly as it relates to writing an essay, because I can tell you right now, the difference between you being developing and proficient, or beginning and developing, or proficient and distinguished is going to come down to how you write. And we've got some tremendous writers, and you've been prepared to write well. And so if you focus on your writing, focus on attention to detail, you're going to go to high school for our eighth graders. And for our seventh graders, you're going to go to eighth grade and you're going to go being prepared and knowledgeable and having passed this milestones assessment. And so, right now, I want to just go over a few key details as it relates to writing essays and writing constructed responses, but in particular, the expectations for you that will be on the Georgia Milestones end of grade assessment for our eighth and seventh graders in ELA. And so, first and foremost, I'll start out with the concept of the essay. Our essential questions are: how do I effectively create a thesis statement for an essay? And what does a well organized essay look like? And so, we'll go through both of those concepts as we move through this particular presentation. First and foremost, in many professions, writing serves as a way for people to broadcast ideas. It's the way in which we communicate. Writing is how we tell stories. It's how we provide information. It's how we make arguments. It's how we interact with the world. And so each individual type of writing or genre of writing serves a different purpose. And we have to know and have a foundational knowledge and background knowledge in what the different genres of writing are and what each purpose is found within each type or genre of writing. An essay is a piece of writing on a particular subject. An essay is about quality over quantity, and you've heard me say that several times in class and in tutorial. It's about quality over quantity. At no point in my class or others, at no point in the milestones assessment will you ever be graded on whether or not you provided 5 paragraphs or whether or not you provided 3 paragraphs. You will be graded on the content and the quality of the words that you type or the words that you write on that paper, and that is it. So that being said, there's a few different classifications of writing. There's expository or explanatory writing. Expository explanatory writing is also known as informational writing. It's non-fiction writing. You're writing about real people, real places, real things. You're providing facts, you're presenting details, you're providing textual evidence, you're providing research, but it's all about the facts. It's not about feelings. It's not about opinions. It's not about an argument. It's just about facts. And then we have the descriptive essay. And descriptive essays can typically be informational or fiction, but they allow us to describe a particular topic or describe a particular event. It's not necessarily a genre of writing, but it is a classification. It's a way that we can categorize or classify our writings. Then we have narrative writing, and your Georgia Milestones assessment will have a short narrative writing prompt that will be what we call an extended constructed response that goes along with a passage you will read. And that narrative response requires that you take that race strategy and put it in your back pocket, because narratives aren't about the race strategy. Narratives about telling a story real or imagined, using vivid imagery and details, captivating the audience. It's not about thesis statements. It's about telling a story. And that being said, when you write a narrative, and in particular for the Georgia Milestones, it may be a situation like when we did our Pi Day writing prompt, where you have to read a narrative and finish the story, conclude the story. It may be a situation where you have to read a narrative story and change the story. It may be a situation where you read a narrative story and shift and give another scenario to the story. But at the end of the day, it's a story, real or imagined. It's not the race strategy. It's not a 5 paragraph essay. It's a vivid, descriptive story that aligns to whatever the prompt is telling you to do. And finally, we have the persuasive or argumentative genre of writing. But regardless of the essay type, each essay contains the same components or a similar structure and organization. So we're going to skip over a little bit and go in particular to expository writing. The long essay, and that's what I call it, but the traditional name for it is the extended writing response. So the extended writing response on the Georgia Milestones assessment will be either informational slash expository, explanatory, or it will be argumentative. So you've either got to describe or present some facts through expository, explanatory, informational writing, or you've got to create an opinion, an argument, and persuade the reader given a particular topic. Again, the narrative essay or the narrative prompt that you will see is short. It's not a 5-paragraph essay, but its focus is then not on a thesis statement, not on the race strategy, but its focus is on how you tell a story. And it might be finishing a story. It might be writing the beginning of a story. It might be writing a different type of story, changing the scenario or changing the characters. Whatever the case may be, make sure that you pay close attention to the writing prompt and the directions that are given to you. This is not a time where you'll use the race strategy. The only time you'll use the race strategy is for your short constructed responses, not on your extended writing response, your long essay, and not when it requires a narrative short response where you're telling a story. So, as I said earlier, the focus of your extended writing response, the long essay that you'll have on the Georgia Milestones assessment, the topic or the genre will either be persuasive and argumentative, where you're arguing something, you're providing an opinion, you're making a choice, one over the other, or you're describing or explaining something. Okay? But either way, when it comes to these long essays for argumentative or informational is oftentimes presented as expository, explanatory. It's the same thing. It's facts. In either case, you must have that dreaded thesis statement. Writing a thesis statement can be a difficult part of starting an essay because the thesis statement is the main focus. Your thesis statement is the main idea. Your thesis statement is the central idea. So therefore, the thesis statement is the most important part of writing any essay. And it always comes in that introduction. It always comes in that first paragraph. And we talked a lot about having the chicken foot graphic organizer as a template. For those of you that are new, you may not know about the chicken foot graphic organizer, but essentially we talk about a way in which we have a 3-part or 3-point thesis statement. Okay? And we'll talk more about that. The thesis statement reveals what the entire paper will be about. It is the foundation for your paper. It is the anchor for your paper. So make sure that the thesis statement appears as the last sentence in your first paragraph. It's the last sentence in that introduction paragraph. Without a properly written thesis statement, the essay will not have a clear focus, a clear topic. It won't have cohesion. It won't have organization. Okay? So that thesis statement is important. As you're taking time to pre-write, you're not going to be able to write and rewrite your essay. But you are going to be able to spend a tremendous amount of time in that pre-writing phase solidifying a strong thesis statement. So the best way to write a paper or a proper thesis statement is to turn an essay prompt into a statement. So this is the only time where we start to mimic anything related to the race strategy. When we're writing a long essay, this is the only time where that R for the race strategy starts to connect again. So we're turning that writing prompt, that question, into a statement that then leads us into our thesis statement. So a prompt for an essay about Romeo and Juliet, which is a story you'll probably read in 9th grade, might be the prompt or question might be, how are Romeo and Juliet similar and different? And so then you have to write an informational or argumentative essay that presents how Romeo and Juliet are similar and how they are different. And so in this particular case, based on that writing prompt, I can begin my thesis statement with R. And this is the only time you're going to use any part of the race strategy for writing a long essay. And that R tells me to restate. And so now my thesis statement says Romeo and Juliet are similar and different blank. And so in this particular example, I'll use Romeo and Juliet and William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet have many similarities and differences regarding their choices in love. That's my thesis statement. See there? I did the same thing for R in the race strategy, but that's the only similarity between writing an essay, a long essay, based on the prompt, and doing a constructive response. Now I'm going to go into why. I'm going to go into my body paragraph. I'm going to go into my textual evidence. And finally, I'll go into my conclusion. I'm going to restate that thesis statement in my conclusion. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to sum it up. I'm going to solidify my argument if it's an argumentative essay. I'm going to strengthen my information if it's informational or expository or explanatory. So taking the essay question and changing the prompt into a statement allows the writer to create a clear thesis statement for the reader. With a clear thesis statement, the writer can align the rest of the ideas and the essay to the main topic. See, if you don't have a strong, clear thesis statement in that introduction, your body paragraph is going to not make sense. It's going to be weak. It's not going to have any structure to it. You provide the structure for your essay by writing a strong thesis statement. So let's talk about what really matters, and that's connecting this to the assessment that you're going to have coming up for all of us, and that's passing the Georgia Milestones assessment. The English Language Arts portion of the Georgia Milestones assessment consists of a few different types of questions. Selected response, which are your multiple choice. Technology enhanced selected response. Those are your multiple choice that include part A and part B questions, where you have to use your answer from part A to then answer part B, and they're all in the same question. Then we have constructed response questions, where we use the race strategy. Extended constructed response questions, which in this case are going to be narratives, not a 5-paragraph essay, but a narrative where you tell a story, real or imagined, where you finish a story, where you rewrite a story. Just depends on what the prompt tells you to do. Extended constructed responses are a little bit longer than the constructed response, but in all cases on the milestones, it's going to be a narrative. It's going to be fiction. And finally, we have our extended writing response. That's our long essay. And I say long essay to distinguish it in length, but not to be specific and say that it has to be 5 paragraphs. It doesn't have to be 5 paragraphs. It can be 5 sentences. Yeah, that may not be realistic for us because we may not be able to express our ideas in that short of a length of time or that length of writing, but still the focus is quality over quantity. The constructive response. So a constructive response asks a question and solicits the student to provide a response that he or she constructs or writes on your own. The constructive response items on the end of grade assessment for milestones will be worth 2 points. They will give you partial credit if part of the response is correct. This is the only time where you're going to be using the full race strategy. Restate and answer. That's 1 sentence. And restate the entire question. Pay attention. Don't restate half the question. Restate the entire question. Don't give away points because you don't pay attention. Restate the entire question. And in that particular case, answer that restatement. That's 1 sentence. Next sentence, introduce your evidence. That's where you're citing. Next sentence, elaborate, explain, expand upon that evidence. There's your constructive response. Okay? RACE. Then we have our extended constructive response. And again, this is where you have your narrative. This is where you're going to tell a short story or finish a short story, like when we had our Pi Day essay. and we had to finish the story about the dragon and the father. An extended constructor response item is a specific type of constructor response item that has a little bit longer, more detailed response from the student. Okay, the extended constructor response will be worth 4 points. For ELA, the student will respond to a narrative prompt based on a passage the student has read, and the response will be scored for your writing section. They will give you partial credit if part of the response is correct. Again, here, your focus no longer is on the race strategy. Your focus is looking at what the prompt is telling you to do and do exactly what it says do. Don't do what you think it says do. Don't do what you want it to say do. Do what the prompt tells you to do. Okay? The name of the game here is follow all directions. For this narrative essay, you're not worried about race. You're worried about looking at that prompt and giving clear details in a story. Okay? Finally, okay, we have extended writing response. This is our traditional essay. It requires the writing process: pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, publishing. But you're not going to have all day. You're not going to have all week to do that. So the bulk of your time is going to be spent on that thesis statement, developing that thesis statement based on the prompt, rewording that prompt like you do for R in the race strategy, and then using that to start your thesis statement. I've taught you the 3-part or 3-point thesis statement that leads to 3 different body paragraphs, or one strong, solid body paragraph with 3 points in it. Either way, the extended writing response items require students to produce an argument, that's argumentative essay, or develop an informative response. It's going to be one of the 2 genres, argumentative or informational. Pay attention to the prompt. It will tell you which one to do. If you're arguing a case, you provide opinions, feelings, plus textual evidence. If you're providing information or explaining, you provide descriptions, facts about real people, real places, real things, plus textual evidence. In any case, you will have read 2 passages, and you must cite evidence from both passages to support your thesis statement and your response. Let's go into some examples. In this particular case, you have one example of a passage. Read the article, Technology Nation, A Unique Vision, and answer items 1 and 2. For the writing section, that's part 1 for us, you will have 3 to 4 passages. One will have a couple of selected response, multiple choice questions, and a short constructed response or an extended writing response. And then the other part of that day or section 1 is your long essay that you will answer after having read 2 passages. So it's not overkill. We've probably overworked you and overdone it as relates to the amount of reading that you'll do on this particular section, but that's all to build your stamina and get you prepared. My philosophy is if you can handle the CSA, Milestones is going to be a breeze. But you have to slow down, pace, use your time, and pay attention to the details. In this particular case, you've got a passage that has 2 figures, 2 images. That's important. Pay attention to those images or figures or tables or charts, because typically that's going to come back up somewhere in a question on the assessment. And in this case, it does. This is a constructed response that goes along with that passage, and it says, what are the advantages of including the 2 images in the passage? So using the race strategy, which you've mastered, you're going to start out with the advantages of including the 2 images in the passage are blank, or the advantages of including the 2 images in the passage includes blank. And then you're going to answer. And then you're going to go back and cite textual evidence. And look here at this rubric, because this is the same rubric they will use. These are 2-point questions. You got to give sufficient evidence. Cite and tell where you got it from. Don't copy and paste. Don't copy and paste and not quote. Don't copy and paste and don't tell me what paragraph. Don't copy and paste and not tell me what passage. Include specific examples. You can't just say, well, in paragraph it says. In paragraph 2, it stated. You got to be more specific. You got to give details that make clear a clear reference to the text. Not just in the text it says, but for example, in paragraph 2 it says. And then you have to adequately explain everything. When you cite textual evidence, that E that comes in race, R-A-C-E, has to be superb. You have to explain. You have to elaborate. Right? And here's an exemplar. Here's a 0, 1, and 2-point response. And you'll notice the difference. Not just in length, but in the quality of what they provide. So a 0 response simply says the images help the reader understand night vision. Not enough details. Didn't use R from race strategy, didn't cite any textual evidence, did not explain, did not elaborate. Then we have a 1-point response. The images help the reader understand what it must look like having night vision capabilities when compared to our standard vision at night. For example, the reader can note how much light and detail can be seen at night with the help of a night vision device. If you go back to the rubric in the video, and this is the same rubric they'll use on the milestones for this 2-point question, it doesn't have sufficient evidence. It's not specific in where the evidence comes from. And it does not explain or elaborate enough. But then we have the exemplar, that 2-point. And I want all of our scholars, because you're capable, all of our scholars to have that 2-point response. And that's where you just go in. And in this particular case, this scholar says the images show a comparison between how a person sees with their standard vision at night and how a person sees with help of a night vision device. One advantage of using the images is that the reader can note the difference between standard vision and night vision more specifically. How much light and detail can be seen at night with the help of a night vision device. The other advantage to having the images included is to showing how much nocturnal animals may see at night as they served as an inspiration for developing such technologies for people to use. Both advantages aid or help the reader in understanding vision differences through the use of images as a real-world example. That's perfect. They speak directly and explicitly to how the images in the passage that we just saw help the reader understand the text and understand the use of standard vision versus night vision devices and equipment. So know the difference. 0, 1, 2. Explain, elaborate, cite, cite, cite. And when you cite, if you copy and paste, you must quote. When you cite, whether you copy and paste or paraphrase, you must tell where you got the evidence from. The paragraph number, the line number, the stanza number, the page number, the title of the text if there's multiple texts. Be specific. Leave no stone unturned. And then we have our 7-point writing response. This is our long essay. And I don't mean 5 paragraphs. When I say long essay, that's in comparison to our short constructed responses. The constructed response, which uses the race strategy, the extended response, which is a narrative, and here are extended writing response, which is either informational or argumentative. So in this case, you're going to have 2 passages. You read the 2 passages, and then you write something about it based on the text and based on the prompt. And we see here your writing task. And your writing task will look exactly like this. It won't have the same topic. It won't be the same passages, but you'll see that rectangular box that has your prompt. You'll see these hints, these tips. If you follow this, guys, you just got promoted. You just passed proficient or distinguished. It's telling you what to do. Be sure to introduce your claim. Be sure to support your claim. Be sure to acknowledge or address alternate or opposing claims. Be sure to organize your reasons and evidence. Be sure to develop your ideas clearly. And when you quote, you must quote and tell where those quotes came from in the text and from what text it came from. and identify the passage by the title or number when using details or facts. Can't just say in the text, because there's two texts that you're going to read for this long essay. Tell the name of the text, the title of the text. Tell the paragraph you got it from. Guys, this will be there in front of you. You must use it. So let's go to this writing prompt here. There's an ongoing debate over the use of genetically modified food. What are the benefits and dangers of producing and consuming foods that have been genetically modified? Think about the ideas in the two passages, then write an argumentative essay. You are arguing a point. So, boom, I'm going to use R from race, and this is the only part of race that I'm going to use. The benefits and dangers of producing and consuming foods that have been genetically modified are expansive, or there are many benefits and a few dangers of producing and consuming foods that have been genetically modified, or there are tremendous benefits of producing food and consuming foods. Choose a point, okay? Then write an argumentative essay arguing your point. Thesis statement goes in that introduction paragraph. Your thesis statement is your main idea. It's your central idea. It's the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. It leads you to your body paragraph. Body paragraph is where you're going to dive into textual evidence. You're going to explain. You're going to cite. You're going to explain. You're going to cite. You're going to back up your thesis statement. Whether you're providing an argument in this case, or if your topic is informational and you're explaining facts and providing details about facts. And finally, let's look. Here's an example of a 7-point response, and these questions are 7 points. This is an example that gets all 7 points, and let me show you why. Listen. Genetically modified food is a necessary and important step in our efforts to feed the people of the world and keep them healthy. Since it has been introduced, farmers have been able to grow more food that uses fewer resources. In that introduction paragraph, I already know what stance she or he is taking. They are supporting genetically modified food. If your argument is not supporting it, then I need to be able to, and that grader, that score for your essay needs to be able to know that in your first paragraph. Then she goes in and says, Rebecca Wilson states that we are all most likely eating genetically modified foods on a daily basis. She claims that, quote, a primary reason for its popularity is how she's quoting, so she puts quotes. Who's quoting? Who's saying this? The author, Rebecca Wilson. And this person states that. You're prepared, you're ready. Take your time, focus on the details, focus on the instructions. Don't get stressed out. Don't halfway answer. You're prepared.